Why did seeing them in a picture together break my brain? There's so much to unpack here in this collab between Nara Smith and Ballerina Farm. So American, look at our boots, look at our American flag, look at all of our babies. We have two Mormon women who make Tradwife content on their porch with their babies with the American flag in the frame, cross-collabing because despite their traditional roots, they are making a lot of money from monetizing and showing their Tradwife content. They make things from scratch, all of this. And then I can't help but think like who these people are voting for, who their audiences are voting for, because I would say this way of life is really at the forefront right now in a lot of ways and being pushed to the front of the media, even like if we're talking about Momtok and Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. This does look like good PR for Daniel. Nara saying, oh, Daniel made homemade yogurt the night before and I couldn't get enough. You know, obviously a lot of our last impressions of Daniel is from the article, the New York Times article talking about Ballerina Farm, and he seemed a little bit domineering and like he would never let her answer. That's how he was described, right? And she was described, she being Hannah was described as exhausted and doing all of the work. So I think this definitely looks a little PR to me in that regard. Again, Momtok is a lot more modern, I would say, than Ballerina Farm. And I don't know, Nara Smith is an interesting intersection to me because they are Mormon, but they're also fashion models. So just in the very fact that I know her husband is Lucky Blue Smith and I remember him on Tumblr, it seems more modern, they seem more modern, but their way of life appears to look from the outside more like Ballerina Farm, whereas like, you know, Taylor, you're seeing her drinking and getting arrested and she has a boyfriend and then she fights him and then they have a baby and all these people are disapproving and they're you know, more so twerking on TikTok as opposed to, you know, baking bread from scratch, milking cows, etc., so on and so forth. But obviously this is a smart collab for them all because their audiences will love each other probably. I totally agree with you, Eli, because a lot of people are in my comments saying, oh, Nara isn't a Tradwife, she just cooks from scratch. I don't really think Nara is a Tradwife. I think she puts out Tradwife or Tradwife adjacent content to make money, and I think that Ballerina Farm needed to do some damage control, so they hit up Nara Smith. Now, if they are hitting up Nara Smith to come to their farm with their several babies, and Hannah's husband Daniel, who put a kibosh on her Juilliard career, and the American flag in the background, and there's an election coming up, can we use our critical thinking to say, okay, even if somebody isn't actually a Tradwife, collabing with the most well-known Mormon family, and you are the other well-known family who cooks from scratch, you guys, sometimes we are looking at the messaging. And it's not, you shouldn't have to be like, oh, well, she just cooks from scratch. Also, cooking from scratch, like, does that not take a lot of time and resources and more of a traditional family style? Like, my mother, I've never seen anybody cook from scratch, okay? That's all I'm going to say. So when people are like, what, why? Because she cooks. A lot about cooking and motherhood is about resources and time and money, okay? So to be like, why? Just because she cooks from scratch? When we know that people who are unhoused are relying not on cooking from scratch. So there is a little bit of wealth that comes, or a certain sort of traditional family style that comes in a way to allow somebody to cook from scratch and to cook every day from scratch and to create gum from scratch. So even if you're like, oh, she's not Mormon, we're talking about, there's an election coming up. We have an American flag on the porch. We have a lot of babies. We have young mothers. We have 22-year-old mothers with several babies, okay? I am 26. I can't imagine having a baby for another, I don't know, 6 years. Okay, so when we're talking about Tradwife, it is more than just black and white. There are things that come with tradition, such as young motherhood and having lots of children and having that value and long dresses, and there's things that come with the look of it, that often the aesthetics of that, a lot of their audience is going to go and, you know, follow each other. Who do you think these people are voting for? What do you think their aesthetics are leaning towards? Do you think it's giving brat? Do you think that this man, Daniel, who was pictured as never letting his wife talk, and how the wife had to go stand on a mountain away from him to give an honest answer to the reporter saying, yeah, I didn't want this. Do you think that these people are directing their audiences towards a free America? Like, I understand, oh, okay, maybe someone's doesn't look like a Tradwife. Let's look at the bigger picture. Let's look at the American flag. Let's look at what this is giving. It gives tradition, except for Lucky Blue over again. And that's why I'm like, I understand Nara Smith is not a Tradwife at all. I think she's getting a bag from being adjacent to it. And no judgment for her, okay? Again, Lucky Blue Smith over here, he's kind of serving. So, but who are they standing beside? That matters. I can't believe Jen Affleck gave her husband $2,500 to gamble in Vegas, and he had the nerve to make her cry about going to Chippendales, saying, I don't want to be married to a woman who does things like this. But he's literally coming to her, like, pouting, like, give me money. And then Jen is just crying in Vegas on the phone with her husband, like, please remember my character, while he's saying, I don't want to be married to someone like this, while he's spending her money. And she had kids for them. And then they cut to a scene where she is taking care of the kids, and he's sitting at the table chilling. And he's, like, being put through med school by her. Or I don't know if he's being put through med school, but she's supporting the family. But Jen is the breadwinner at 24 years old. And it really is heartbreaking to see this woman not just do all of the work and make all of the money, but then be oppressed by her husband. Like, he's actually telling her what she can and cannot do. And whenever the group takes her to an establishment and she doesn't even know about it, he is like freaking out at her to where she's crying on the phone while he is spending her money. And that is all somehow Mormonism. That is crazy to me. And again, I think we're getting like a very large dose of Mormon content and reality shows these days, and I think it's so interesting because now that they have peeled the veil back, it does appear that this man is using this woman for money to have their children, to take care of their home, and then also for his ego. Because how are you spending money in Vegas on poker that your wife gave you, and then you're yelling at her because her friends took her to Chippendales and she didn't even want to go in, and she's crying in Vegas when she paid for you to have a good time? My mom stopped watching the show, and I was like, dude, you need to keep watching, at least for this plot line. It's unmatched. And it's crazy because they are like the more Mormon ones, but she's really suffering because he's in medical school, so she's supporting them, and he still is like ordering her around as if he was the breadwinner.